All right, let's dive in. Ready for a deep dive? This one goes out to all you lit fans out there. Today, we're tackling All Quiet on the Western Front.
One of the most powerful war novels ever written.
Absolutely. And we're dissecting it, like a literary frog in biology class.
Not exactly a cheery metaphor, is it?
Well, war isn't exactly cheery, is it? But that's the thing about this book.
It doesn't sugarcoat anything.
No, it throws you right into the trenches of World War I. And you experience it all.
The mud, the blood, the terror.
Through the eyes of a young German soldier.
Paul Bäumer.
Paul. Now, this isn't your typical war hero story.
Yeah, no glory here.
No romanticizing.
Just raw, unflinching honesty.
Well, that's what makes it so impactful, right? It's like you're right there with Paul.
Feeling every explosion, every loss.
And you can't talk about this book without talking about the author.
Erich Maria Remarque.
A German veteran of World War I himself.
He brought his own experiences to the page.
And the world noticed. Published in 1929, it became an instant bestseller.
An international sensation.
But it also,
sparked some serious controversy.
bad in some places even.
Imagine, the world is still healing from World War I.
Yeah, the wounds are fresh.
And there's this push to glorify the war, Focus on national pride, the sacrifices.
Right. Painted as a noble cause.
And then this book comes along.
And just rips the Band-Aid off.
It lays bare the horrific reality, the trauma, the disillusionment.
It challenged the narrative.
10 people. They weren't ready for that.
No, they weren't. So to really grasp this book's impact, we need to picture the setting.
The Western Front, 1916 to 1918.
The later stages of the war.
The trenches.
A bleak, muddy hellscape.
Where hope is dwindling.
It's brutal, dehumanizing.
And Remarque captures it all.
Okay, let's talk about Paul Bäumer, our protagonist.
He's an ordinary guy.
Just caught in the gears of war.
Swept up in the propaganda.
Along with his classmates.
Full of patriotic fervor.
Romantic notions of heroism.
They volunteer for the army.
Barely old enough to shave.
Children, really. Thrown into a meat grinder.
War doesn't discriminate.
No, it doesn't. Age, background, dreams.
It devours everything.
And through Paul's eyes, we see that stark contrast.
Between the propaganda
and the reality.
Yeah, the glory they were promised.
Gone.
Replaced by fear, exhaustion.
The constant struggle to survive.
And that's got to be a key part of the book's power, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That shattering of youthful idealism.
So we follow Paul through these horrific battles.
Witness the camaraderie.
That bond forged in the face of death.
And we see him grapple with it all.
The psychological and emotional toll.
There's even this incredibly poignant scene.
He goes home on leave.
Expecting comfort, familiarity.
But instead,
alienation.
He doesn't recognize himself.
Or his old life.
War has changed him.
Irrevocably.
That's heartbreaking. War doesn't just fracture individuals.
It fractures communities. Societies.
It rips through the fabric of everyday life.
And Remarque populates the story with these unforgettable characters.
Okay, tell me about them. Who are these people?
Well, there's Kitsinski,
Yes.
the older, wiser soldier.
Like a mentor to Paul.
He's seen it all, tries to guide the younger soldiers.
Offer them some humanity.
Then there's Albert Kropp.
Paul's close friend.
Suffers terribly, physically and emotionally.
And then
Himmelsstoß.
the cruel training sergeant.
The embodiment of military authority at its worst.
Blind obedience. Brutality.
Each of these characters, they represent a facet of the war experience.
Different ways of coping.
Or not coping.
So powerful setting, a protagonist undergoing this profound transformation, and a cast of characters who each bring something unique.
It's a masterpiece for a reason.
And we've only scratched the surface.
There's so much more to uncover.
We'll be back with part 2 of this deep dive, exploring the major themes that make All Quiet on the Western Front such an enduring work. Stay tuned.
Okay, so we're back. And we're ready to unpack some of these big ideas that Remarque is wrestling with.
Yeah, like what are the messages he's trying to get across?
Well, one of the most prominent and honestly most heartbreaking is the psychological toll of war.
The trauma.
Exactly. But he doesn't just tell you about it, you feel it. Through Paul's eyes, through his friends.
You're in their heads.
Exactly. Remember that scene when Paul's on leave and he goes back to his old school?
Oh, yeah.
He sees these young students full of life, full of hope, and he can't relate.
Like he's looking through a window at a different world.
Yeah. There's this chasm between him and them. He's seen too much, experienced too much.
In a sense, lost.
Shattered. And it makes you wonder, How do you come back from that? How do you bridge that gap?
Between the world you left and the world you're in now.
Right. That's the question that haunts this book. And honestly, it haunts veterans of all wars.
Even today.
That feeling of alienation, like you've been changed by something that nobody else can understand.
It's a universal theme.
That remark captures so perfectly. And it's not just about Paul's individual experience either.
No, it's about a whole generation.
Right. A whole generation fed lies about glory and heroism.
And then chewed up and spit out by the war machine.
Remember Cantorek, their old school teacher? The one who urged them to enlist?
Oh, yeah. He was all about romanticizing war. The grand adventure.
He's a symbol of that blind nationalism.
That sent so many young men to their deaths.
It's a powerful critique of the propaganda, the empty rhetoric that fuels war.
Yeah, it's a reminder that war often starts with words, persuasive speeches, slogans.
That can be so seductive.
Especially when they prey on our fears and desires. But, like Paul and his friends find out, reality rarely matches the rhetoric.
And that's where the disillusionment sets in. They realize that war isn't about heroism or glory.
It's about survival, holding on to any bit of humanity you can.
And that loss of innocence, that shattering of illusions, that's one of the most tragic parts of the book.
It's heartbreaking. These were just boys, with dreams, ambitions.
They were supposed to be going to universities, starting families, building lives.
And war stole it all from them.
Their youth, their future, their sense of self.
It's like a slow, agonizing erosion.
Every battle, every death, every horrifying experience, it chips away at them.
Leaving them exhausted, emotionally drained before their time.
And yet, even in all this darkness, there are these moments of light, moments of connection.
And you're talking about the camaraderie between the soldiers.
Yes, that bond they forge in the face of death. It's a strange thing.
Strange, but powerful.
It's not always pretty. There's competition, resentment, even cruelty sometimes.
But there's also this deep loyalty.
This understanding that goes beyond words. They need each other to survive physically and emotionally.
They become each other's family.
The only ones who truly get it.
And you see that most clearly in Paul's relationship with Kat.
Kat, the older, more experienced soldier.
They share cigarettes, scavenge for food, reminisce about life before the war.
They find comfort in each other in the darkest of times.
It's a reminder that even in hell, human connection can endure.
Right. And then Kat dies.
Oh, yeah.
That's a rough one.
One of the most devastating moments in the book. Kat, he represented this resilience, a way to navigate the horrors and hold on to some humanity.
And when he dies, it's like a light goes out.
Yeah, it signals the triumph of despair. Such a powerful moment.
It shows how war doesn't just destroy lives, it destroys hope. But even though the book is bleak, it's more than just pessimism.
Right. There's something about it that transcends that.
It's a warning, but it's also a testament to the resilience of the human spirit.
Exactly. And that's what keeps All Quiet on the Western Front so relevant, even today.
It's timeless. Okay, so we've talked about the personal impact, but this book also had a huge cultural impact.
Oh, absolutely. It sparked debates, challenged beliefs about war.
It was controversial, so let's dive into that.
Okay, so last time we were talking about the impact of the cultural shockwaves.
Yeah, why did this book cause such a stir? I mean, people really got riled up. Right? Oh, absolutely. It's because Remarque dared to tell the truth, the raw, unvarnished truth about war. No sugarcoating.
No glorifying, just the reality.
And that was a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people, especially those in power.
Remember, this is just a decade after World War I. The world is still licking its wounds.
Trying to make sense of the devastation, and there's this push to glorify the war, focus on the sacrifices, the victories.
Right, build up that national pride.
Exactly, but then comes this book.
And it just explodes that whole narrative.
It rips away the facade of heroism and exposes the brutality, the senselessness of it all.
It challenged the accepted version of history.
The idea that war was a noble, necessary cause. And for those clinging to that narrative, it was a threat.
Unpatriotic, some even called it. Defeatist. Dangerous.
It forced them to confront the uncomfortable truth. War wasn't about parades and medals.
It was about mud, blood, and shattered lives. So, yeah, it got banned in some places, deemed too subversive.
But for others, especially those who had experienced war firsthand, it was a revelation.
A validation of their own experiences.
A voice for their trauma, their disillusionment.
The things they couldn't put into words. This book gave them that.
It was cathartic for them, a way to process the horrors they witnessed, to feel seen, understood.
And it sparked a conversation. A real honest conversation about the true cost of war.
A conversation that we're still having today.
So you've got this book. It's a testament to storytelling, but it's also a catalyst for social change.
It transcends time and place,
Yeah.
It speaks to something deep within us, the human experience of war.
And it's not just the story, right? It's how Remarque tells it.
His writing style is vivid, unflinching. He uses imagery, stream of consciousness, a fragmented structure.
Yeah, all of that adds to the feeling of chaos and disorientation.
The way war shatters not just bodies, but minds and souls.
For students of literature, this book is more than just required reading.
Oh, absolutely. It's a masterclass in using language to convey complex emotions.
Capturing a historical moment.
Exploring universal themes.
And its impact goes way beyond literature, too.
The multiple film adaptations are proof of that.
Each one reflecting the era it was made in. The 1930 film, capturing that raw post-war feeling. Then the 1979 adaptation, resonating with the anti-war sentiment of the Vietnam era. And the most recent film, offering a modern perspective on these timeless themes.
All Quiet on the Western Front just keeps finding new audiences, new conversations.
It's almost a century old, but still relevant, still impactful.
It's a book that stays with you, challenges your perceptions, makes you confront uncomfortable truths.
And ultimately, it leaves you with a deeper understanding of what it means to be human.
Well said.
Well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive into All Quiet on the Western Front. We covered a lot of ground, the history, the literary techniques, the lasting impact. But as we go, here's something to think about. If All Quiet on the Western Front were written today about a modern conflict, what would be different and what would be, sadly, tragically, the same?
That's a good one. Something to ponder.
Definitely. And if you haven't already, check out the book or one of the film adaptations. It's an experience you won't forget.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
And until next time, keep diving deep.